syns jag. Syns man inte finns man inte. Eva berättar.
Och så ska jag gå ner och opereras i Narvik. Och så ska jag resa till Tromsø. Ja. Jo da, det är ju det.
Det går att ta Tromsø och går det till något.
Är det livaktigt?
Ja, det kommer nog säga. Det är många som har. Vi kör en vanlig väg, men vi kör ihop varandra. Det är ganska långt tid. Om man inte åker bort så kommer det fram till
Nu då?
Ja.
Nu har vi börjat. De här delarna.
Jag kan ju prata först.
Ja, visst, jag ska börja.
Men då hörs han inte. Då måste jag ha mikrofonen först. Jag har den. Det går inte att hålla. Okej, stäng av den.
Ja.
Det här är en som kan bli.
Yes. I put it in 2 dimensions, not 3. We are in crisis. We are in accelerating spiral of climate change that will not abide unsustainable greed. Today, we reaffirm our relationship to Mother Earth and our obligation to future generations to uphold peace, equity, and justice. Sisters and brothers, ladies and gentlemen, very much welcome to Jokkmokk and this live streaming from our conference. This was a quote from the Kimberley Declaration that were adopted 2002 in the Diamond District of Kimberley on indigenous peoples' territories. Today is 100 years since 1989 years. The preparation for the first border crossing land meeting were held and prepared in Trondheim. It was a turbulent time. The First World War were raging on the continent, and in 1917 the civil war began in Finland and the February Revolution in Russia. Despite this fact, the organizer of the Elsa Laula, Daniel Mårtensson and others prepared for the border crossing land meeting in Trondheim. In Sweden, bread, and grain and flour was shortage, and it was 2,300 demonstrations during the spring in various cities. And machine guns nests were put up on Gustav Adolfs torg in Stockholm. It was a violent time, and violence often struck indigenous peoples. I could have dedicated my speech here to Elsa Laula, which I have done several times before, but today I want to dedicate my speech to Commandante Esther, who was the first indigenous person and a woman who were allowed to make a statement to the parliament plenary session in Mexico. It's a good encouragement for the indigenous peoples worldwide and also in Abya-Yala, North and South America. It is also just 20 years ago since a peace treaty was signed in Guatemala, where the vast majority is indigenous peoples, but still the peace treaty itself is not filled with any content. There will be no peace without justice. There will be no reconciliation without equity. Ladies and gentlemen, sisters and brothers, very much welcome to our interesting conference. And now I have used my 3 minutes, so I will mention my name. My name is Stefan Mikaelsson, and I'm chairperson of Sami Parliament Plenary Assembly. And now over to something more interesting. I have Gunilla Larsson, FD, Archaeology, and she will hold a lecture about some results from investigations of forest Sami remains in the Jokkmokk region. So go ahead, Gunilla Larsson, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I will... So, now you hear me? I will take a short presentation about my initial results from investigations of the forest Sami remains in the Jokkmokk area. That contains 2 of my 3 research areas. And it's just preliminary results because much is still left to do in this area. But some results at least. And the goal is to create interpretations, perspectives, theories and methods that are not created within the frame of a Swedish male view with the roots in the 19th century social Darwinistic society and thoughts about gender relations. And it's about threatened Sami heritage. It's a superdisciplinary research that involves also people outside the academia and to build up the knowledge around and identify and localize, document and analyze the traces from the forest Sami history. And the history is very much in the ground. The archaeology is the source material for an unwritten history, so we have to find these places. They contain the evidence of our presence here and how we have lived throughout the centuries and millennia, if they are protected and investigated and not destroyed. And there's many threats. And there's intrusions, exploitation, forestry, and in the forestry you have ground preparations before planting new trees that very effectively destroys all kinds of remains. And today, when you're doing forest work, you don't have to go and ask for permission, so there will be no primary investigation of archaeological remains in the forest works. Other kinds of exploitation, you have to do that. But we have very little knowledge about the Sami heritage in these areas. And the Sami society in early days, it was divided up into so-called skatteland within the 4 Sami villages here in Jokkmokk. We have the Torpon and Sirkas mountain Sami villages, and also Jokkmokk and Tjocksjokk for Sami villages. And in the former Sami society, you stayed in your skatteland, the tax-paying district, the whole year, and it was for the whole family, and the daughters and sons equally had a part in these areas that you use for your economy. Well, in the mountain Sami society, you had at least 3 different skattelands in the areas that you used in different times of the year. You had forest reindeer herding in the forest Sami society that is completely different to the mountain reindeer herding. Especially in that the forest reindeer stays and have a pasture on the bogs in summertime and not to go up to the mountains. So you don't need to have these big long distance movements in the forest Sami society. And there are some remains that I have found during the service in the 90s of border markers for these tax-paying districts. And they are very important since much of the historical documentations and maps have disappeared for these tax-paying areas that are important theoretical documents also. And earlier surveys in the beginning and for quite a long time during the 20th century were based in a nationalistic view about Sweden, and one nation, one people, one history, one type of archaeological remains, and based in an old colonialistic history writing that Swedes colonized and cultivated virgin lands here up in the north. That was not completely right, and it was not until the local office of the National Board of Antiquities opened up in Luleå that you try to find new ways of finding other types of archaeological remains from other peoples, from Sami remains also. But just as we have built up knowledge about these types of remains, it was put down the National Survey. And history is still in the ground, and you have to investigate it. And especially little knowledge is about the forest Sami cultural heritage. And there are also forest Sami remains in the middle of Sweden. And this picture was taken the same day as Bertil Marklund had his thesis presented in Umeå University about forest Sami history. It's very good that also people in the history discipline make a notice on forest Sami. But he has written in his thesis that they start at the Ångermanälven River. This is from my investigation area in Forsa socken in Hälsingland. We have similar types of remains as you found up here. It's a storage pit behind my copter on the picture. And you have also in Forsa parish, in many places, remains of forest Sami. And hunting has been very important, and fishing together with forest reindeer herding in older days. But as I have observed earlier in my service now up here, there's a much more complicated and varied economy than only these ones. But this was very important because that was also a base earlier for Swedish economy, the Sami hunt of fur animals and fur trades. Viking Age economy would have been nothing without the Sami trade with valuable furs. And you find the forest Sami remains by lakes and by bogs, because you have the summer pasture for the reindeers in the bogs. So in one of my investigation areas here outside Jokkmokk in Källarholm, Skatteland, the majority of the habitation sites is by the bogs. And the National Survey then, we can say that it is quite little in the north. So it's, this map is from '96, but it's about the same. It hasn't been any main changes. So you can say that southern Sweden is completely surveyed by most of Sámi is not surveyed at all, not even the first survey. And is threatened by big enterprises, like for instance mining. And here are the permissions in the Gällivare area. My investigation area has been the skattelandet Kärrborgs land is by Gallok, and Källärim, and then Forsa parish in Hälsingland. And it started with Gallok. I was asked if I could come up and look at some remains up here that had not been investigated in the survey. And this showed to be a really interesting area of investigation, because you not only have this main migration route between summer and winter pasture grounds for mountain reindeer herding, but you also have forest Sami tax land here. And it has been along a main communication route for trade for centuries. And the whole island here is going to be affected by the mining activities. Not only the mine, but also tailings dam and waste mounds and many other things. So 1,500 hectares is affected by the mining enterprise. And here we had the areas with the bogs that were not surveyed earlier. So they were left because it was not thought that they should find anything, but there were remains there. So for instance, this was logs from an old timbered kåta water that would have looked like this. And this is by Gallokjaure, and by Gallokjaure there were another place also where the small stream left the lake. And there was also these storage pits that you used for storing milk products and meat and fish and other things, the Bodö in Sámi. But there were also other things. There was tar pits. And by historical research I found out that this has been one of the important parts of the activities in this area. Together with looking for pearls in the pearl ribbons beside. So you had a really mixed economy, and the name of this area is called Kärrborgs land, the one that trades with tar. And also remains of the communication system, mark where you pull boats between different lakes. And here is the Morka, the portage site, the old one, that also called from Linné, rice about where he pulled the boats. So it was really, it was only out a few days, but there were many remains of the cultural landscape, the Sami landscape here. And when it comes to the gender perspective and the skatteland, this is as Sami Rights describes it, that the children, brothers as well as sisters, live and inherit the lands that they have from their parents. And in Kärrborgs land, it is several times daughters that inherit the land, and then when they marry, their husbands move to their wife's land and change their family name to their wife's family's last names. So, and that explains why Hultberg, for instance, in his book about for the Jokkmokk Sámi area, finds the same man with 3 different family names. So the first family name is the one where he grew up, from that family. The second is, if he has 3 different, is from the first wife. He moves to his wife's skatteland and settles there with her and takes her family's last name. And sometimes he's married once again, another time, and then he got her name as well. The second area in Jokkmokk is Rällarim, that is really interesting, because here we have so lots of ethnological documentation. So I look not only at archaeological material, but also ethnological documentation and historical sources as well. And part by the river is completely destroyed because it's underwater, under the Letze Dam. But there's some remains, and if you come to a settlement site, you can see it immediately. It looks like this. You have lots of grass and juniper, and if you see this in the landscape, you should stop and go and survey very carefully, and then you find the fireplaces and other storage pits and other things. And it's the same here, that the daughters inherit and their husbands move to their scatterland. And at the same place as you had the main settlement site, it was settlement sites from very long ago as well. And there are also at Koivu remaining buildings that are falling apart, a few places with forest Sami cultural heritage. So it has to be protected in some way, because there are also few places of this site, this type of forest Sami remains that are left. So I think I will stop with this one. This is a continuity from long ago until today. So I met the descendants of these people. And it's Anders Thomas and Rim's daughter Emma, who inherits the part of Scatterland, marries with Johan Peter Stenman, and they build a small cottage in this place. And she lived here with 16 children, as is told. And you have the building remain, and you have the old well, and you have the bog beside also. So thank you very much for it. Yeah, if you have some questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, so much, Gunilla, for this. And there are time for questions. Do you have any questions? Now is the time for those to be brought forward.
I can just say that the one that we were expecting to be part from on Skype, Peter Leonard is not on Skype, so we're taking his time. That's what happens if you're not here. Any questions? We'll wait for the questions.
Everything is clear?
Hello, Gunilla. When you show the map, you show that the northern parts of Sweden have not been surveyed. Have you gotten like any explanations or responses to why it is like that?
I have asked the questions myself many times, and the National Board of Antiquities, they want to continue themselves to continue to build up the knowledge about the Sami culture and heritage. And they written a report in 1996 when they started to phase out the survey, and later also, but nothing has happened. The government decided that it should be put down, and they has given no more money for this. And you have only started in these parts of Sweden to do the survey. And the whole Sami heritage is risking to be destroyed, especially by forestry, but also by other activities if it's not documented and registered and investigated.
I have a question. Thank you very much. I have a small question. In 1992, the Indigenous Peoples Declaration in karaoke was adopted, and it says, among other things, it says, "We walk to the future in the footprints of our ancestors." So I would like to ask you, Gunilla, how important is it to have culture remaining in the nature for an indigenous peoples, showing that we have existed there before the establishment of the Nordic countries, for instance? How important is it for ourselves and also for the dominating society to have proof, since we are not considered to be able to talk for ourselves? How important is it to have proof that our culture and our nation has been here a long time ago?
It is extremely important, because that is the proof of our presence here in earlier days, and you can tell when we were here, what we were doing, and everything about how we lived and our ancestors lived. And not just speculation as it has been earlier. And if all these remains are just taken away, we have nothing but speculation left. This is for ourselves and for the rest of Sweden so important to preserve our heritage for the future.
Thank you very much. We have time for one question. But you don't have to, okay, Kjell-Åke?
Maybe it's a little bit more like a comment. We have discussed the Swedish colonial history, and until 1987, Sami remains were not protected by law. Praxis was so. They could never be protected, just okay to take them away. But then 1987 praxis was changed, but then 10 years later it was laid down in all surveys. There were no money anymore. Because then to continue the survey, of course, that will cost some money. And then it was laid down. Some rights were protected, but not surveyed. So then they, so to say, are still unprotected, many of them, because we don't know where they are situated. So thank you, Gunilla, for your presentation.
And thank you, Kjell-Åke, for your comments. Gunilla, do you have any final statement, or are you finished?
We have tried. It's very important that we raise this issue, and we raised it together with the minister in the meeting we had in the autumn also. And I think it's also said in the UN declarations that we have signed that every indigenous people have the rights to their history. And it's also said in ILO 169 that we have not signed, but in the earlier declaration when we was granted the status as indigenous people, it's also said that every indigenous people have the rights to their history. But we have not been granted this right in reality since the heritage is not documented and not protected in reality. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and let us give Gunilla a hand. We continue in the program, and the current paragraph in the program.
I'm afraid that we don't have Katie Leonard Hansen online, so we'll have to go on to the next presenter.
Yes, the current program, the presenter will be Liz-Marie Nielsen from Sami Foundation. And
sorry, Lisa, sorry, det är jag som står ur bilden.
Preserving and developing the cultural heritage of Sami handicrafts. And Liz-Marie Nielsen, you have a few more minutes to your time frame, so you can go ahead. Very much welcome.
Is it okay if I talk in Swedish? Yeah? Okay, thank you.
Sort of okay.
Och vi är något så tjusigt som nationella utvecklare i Bodö med olika ansvarsområden. Jag jobbar med marknadsföring, kommunikation och information. Jag är ganska ny på bygget. Sanna Larsson jobbar med kulturarvsfrågor. Jag kan bläddra vidare. Jag ska se vad det står här. Jag ska bara kort berätta om Samistiftelsen. Den startade 1993. Och då var det av 2 riksorganisationer, Öppnande och Svenska Samers Riksförbund, SSR. Och det var utifrån ett behov av att det slöjdas väl inte så mycket då på den tiden, samla och fylla i. Det handlar om att positionera sig som en egen bransch, en egen näring, och synliggöra den. Och det startades som en stiftelse. Och vi har våra övergripande mål är att främja, stödja, utveckla samisk slöjd och konsthantverk och värna det samiska hantverks- och kulturarvet. Ja, kan bläddra vidare. Och då har jag berättat om våra verksamhetsområden. Det är kulturarvsfrågor, näringsfrågor. Vi har också en tredje person som jobbar med mer baserat mot näringslivet och direkt mot de slöjdföretagen och sådär. Marknadsföring, kommunikation, information, branding också som pratar med går är viktigt idag. Vi är en brytpunkt just nu som organisation. Forskning och utveckling ingår också i samtliga de här områdena. Var med? Ja. Och det finansieras då av Kulturdepartementet genom Sametinget och Nämnden för hemslöjdsfrågor. Och då kan man problematisera lite där, och det är att hade vi varit ungefär det här som May-Britt pratar om, att vi är egentligen motsvarande nämnden för Bodö-frågor, alltså kulturarvet Bodö, men ligger under en nämnd för hemslöjdsfrågor. Vi har ett nationellt övergripande ansvar vad gäller Bodö och nämnden för hemslöjdsfrågor. Så vi hamnar liksom lite mitt emellan, hur man ska säga. Nämnden för hemslöjdsfrågor, de har flera. Vi sitter här i Jokkmokk och har valt att placera oss i Jokkmokk för att det är centralt i svenska Sámi med vårt kansli. Och de är i Stockholm och har flera hemslöjdskonsulenter. Alltså personer som sitter på olika platser runt om i länen. Medan vi då är 3 personer på ett kansli i Jokkmokk. Vi skulle också vilja ha Bodö-konsulenter, alltså som kan det här med, så man kan gå till och få tips, kan du hålla en vävkurs, kan du hjälpa mig med det här, hur gör jag nu, vad hittar jag material? Och det saknar vi. Och det tror vi handlar om att det är en samisk institution, form av diskriminering och så vidare. Ja, det är huvudkontoret som jag har i Jokkmokk. Bodö är den samiska kulturen. Jag pratade om igår det här med att Bodö är lite exklusivt, att det uppfattas som lite exkluderande. Vi ser på Bodö och pratar om Bodö väldigt mycket som att det är en kulturbärare, även om man har tappat språket, även om man har tappat rötterna och platserna som, man har tappat delar av sitt samiska arv, så är ett samiskt, alltså ett Bodö-föremål beroende på, det kan vara allt från eller något samiskt föremål, det kan vara sånt här. Det är inte Bodö riktigt, men det är i alla fall ett samiskt nyckelband. Att det kan man, hur ska man säga, det är en lättillgänglig identitetsmarkör. Så att vi menar tvärtom på att det är en inkluderande del av det samiska arvet. Och så jobbar vi med det här med på branding med det här Bodö-märket, och det kom till egentligen som ett kommersiellt märke för att visa att någonting var gjort enligt med någon som har samisk bakgrund, kompetens om kulturarvet, formspråk, hur man arbetar med materialen. Och det är ett varumärke då för samiskt hantverk. Nu håller vi på att samarbeta med via Samerådet som äger då det här märket. Vi distribuerar bara det på svensk sida. Nu har vi haft ett samarbete med Norge, Finland och Ryssland. Ja. Där vi ser över, och tillsammans med jurister, har sett över hur vi gemensamt ska jobba med det och liksom lyfta det mer. Och har även kommit fram till att det behövs ett ytterligare märke som är Sami Mail, för att också lyfta samiskt tillverkade saker. Som exempelvis stoltkastprodukten. Jag skulle kunna ha ett Sami Mail, men nu är det inte så starkt eget varumärke. Men det finns en möjlighet i alla fall. För Dodi-märket det krävs att det är handgjort, även med hjälp av maskin. Det får inte vara massproducerat, det får inte vara några tryckta brickor. Det är inte Dodi idag. Det kan ju hända att det blir i framtiden, men idag anses det inte. Ja, det var en paus. Tack så mycket. Nu har du frågor till mig.
Gud vad fina. Farligt med de där pausbilderna. Finns de att se?
Inte de där skolan. Slöjdare lämnar ju in till oss på kommission. Vi har ju inga medel. Det är också ett problem, samma som Sametinget har, att vi har samma anslag att arbeta med. Vi har ett nationellt uppdrag som är över hela Sverige. Det finns samer som slöjdar i Stockholm. Det finns samer som slöjdar gränsen upp längs ända upp i norra Sverige och i Skåne. Och vi är som sagt 3 personer som då dels ska jobba för att sprida kunskap om Dodin även på en högre nivå, och sen så kanske det är folk som behöver praktisk hjälp. Så det är ingen lätt situation med samma pengar som vi hade 1993. Det är inte index, det är ett steg för mycket om hur det är. Så det är inte en lätt uppgift. Så.
Hej, jag skulle bara fråga, du sa att ni har inga slöjdkonsulenter, men har ni haft någon gång? Vad har hänt? Och sen andra frågan, har ni verksamhet för barn?
Från början så var det när Sameslöjdstiftelsen bildades 1993, det är det som har hänt, att uppdraget har förändrats, det samiska samhället har förändrats. Då hette det Dodje-konsulent, de tjänsterna vi har. Och då handlar det ju jättemycket om att åka och fika med slöjdare, att visa hur man vävde, att visa hur man hanterade föremål, att hålla utbildningar och kurser gjorde de väldigt mycket i sammanhang med den. Så på ett sätt fanns det, men också väldigt lokalt begränsat. Det är fortfarande ett problem, 3 personer, det har aldrig funnits fler, med också utöver det andra uppdrag. Så det har aldrig funnits, det borde finnas, och vi borde, tycker vi, att det är nödvändigt. Och sen,
för barn?
Ja, för barn. Jo, vi har, det är som sagt var det här med pengar, men vi har sökt, för det finns också, vi försöker ligga på skolorna och se som vårt uppdrag att se till att det finns med i kursplanen, Dodji på de samiska skolorna, försöker trycka på alltså de befintliga utbildningsanläggningarna, vara med dem i ansökningen. Nu har vi gjort en jättestor ansökan som jag håller tummarna att vi får igenom, för att få, vad vi skulle vilja ha är ju samma som Nämnden för hemslöjdsfrågor har, en nationell utvecklare med inriktning barn och ungdom. Det finns inte heller. Så målet med ansökan är att få till en fast sån tjänst, men också få till ett större arbete. Småprojekt är ju så vi gör saker hela tiden.
tänkte på, det här handlar ju på något sätt om att värna identiteten och varumärket på något sätt. Har ni någon känsla själv för hur pass hotat det är? Vad är det som händer? Vad är trenden?
Utan vetenskapliga belägg för det, men det vi ser är ju överlag, och det ser man ju i hela världen, att det är en ny sån här våg med där det är ett stort intresse för urfolk, för urfolksmönster. Det har varit en familj i Mexiko nu exempelvis, eller en folkgrupp i Mexiko, det har varit mycket skriverier om, som där ett modehus, ett franskt modehus, tog copyright på deras gamla mönster. Så att de plötsligt inte själva får ha sina kläder. Det löste ut sig sen. Eller det här fallet när någon kläddesigner hade hittat någon inuitdräkt som tillhörde någon anhörig och gjort tryck av det och sådär. Så att vi märker av att det är ett större intresse. Vi märker av att vi får mer, det märker ju ni säkert av också, att det är ett stort intresse för det samiska. På finsk sida har ni ganska besvärligt, har jag förstått, med att det är en stor plagiatmarknad. Ja, men vi märker det, att det är på gång. Sen, så jag vet inte om det är svar på din fråga. Det finns ett stort intresse för slöjden, intresset ökar och intresse för det samiska överhuvudtaget, tycker jag. Ja, man märker av det. Och sen så, hur hotat? Ja, det är svårt att säga, men för oss, det vi ser är att vi måste jobba med exempelvis Bodö-märket och kanske ett märke till för att hjälpa. Vi vill ju på något sätt gynna dem, framförallt Bodö då från vår sida, men överlag samiska entreprenörer, och, om man ska få vara så krass, men att, som har någon kulturarvsförmedling eller kompetens. Och jag vet inte om jag svarar på din fråga, om jag bara hörde till det. Nej, jag har ingen vetenskaplig grund. Hur upplever du? Men du måste ju också, du sitter ju också i verksamhet.
Ja, absolut. Jag håller ju med dig. Och det där svaret skulle jag kunna...
Sagt själv.
Ja, i princip. Jag undrar om ni har mer liksom bakgrundsfakta. Har ni
men vi märker ju på mejl. Vi får ju mejl från, och det tror jag inte vi fick lika mycket förut. Vi får från reklambyråer, såna här som, det är uppdelat, som gör research inför en ny produkt. Att man vill ha lite samisk profil och så vill man involvera, för man förstår ju att man kan inte bara liksom kapa det samiska, för det har ju blivit motsatt, utan då vill man ha samisk profil, involvera någon konstnär, fast det egentligen är en icke-samisk produkt, och resten av gänget är, men att på något sätt skapa legitimitet, det har vi ju jättemycket, som jag tror att ni inte hade lika mycket förut. Och också, som vi också kan se ett problem, att vi har inte den tyngden, eftersom inte vi är en nämnd, vi ligger under en nämnd. Så att när vi sitter med, vi har liksom inte den här självklara rollen, det har ni säkert problem också, att få sitta med i båda beslut fattas om pengar, om vi har invändningar mot att någon som inte kan någonting om doji, inte har någon anknytning till det samiska, söker pengar via konstnärsnämnden, till att jag hittar bara på någonting nu. Men det finns liknande exempel, men för att inte utlämna någon. Jag söker pengar till ett projekt där jag ska göra samiska dräkter exempelvis. Och så säger vi, men stopp och belägg, det funkar inte riktigt. Då anses vi jäviga, om du förstår. Medan vid samma bord jag hittar bara på, kan då den här individens professor och handledare från Konstfack eller HDK, som är konstutbildningar här, sitta med och fatta beslut och tycka det är jättebra. Alltså att vi upplever att vi respekteras inte som en kompetens, och doji inte som det nationella kulturarv, det är det internationella för mig. Så det är ett problem i vardagen.
No, not so. One small question. Short. One short question.
This is not a question, it's more like a reflection from my point of view. And I see it's a huge interest for doji among Samis, even among young people. And there is also a huge interest for Sami design. And those who are interested are Samis. 95%. So, from my point of view, those who are interested in Sami design, it's Samis, almost only Samis. And I think to stimulate those who are interested in Dodji, it's much more, it's a bigger
More constructive.
and more constructive, and I think it's bigger work than to protect from others who are interested in Dodji. It's just a reflection. Thank you.
Jag kan bara säga lite snabbt så här. Jag tror att vi håller med om det och vi har pratat jättemycket om det för att det har varit en juridisk process kring Dodji-märket, den här nationella processen. Och vi på svensk sida som har hunnit hålla på ett tag med Dodji-märket, som ju i och för sig är ett protektionistiskt märke, men det handlar om ett kulturarv. Vi ser att det handlar mer om marknadsföra. Jag tror att vi är mer lite längre fram i vårt tänk. Det finns många bidragande orsaker.
En fundering jag har på en gång. Så här. Jag vet att det finns nu första professorn i Dodji, Wed Apr, som nu är rektor också på Sami skola. Men har ni något samarbete med forskare som tittar på Dodji på svensk sida, tänker jag? Finns det som forskningsämne som ni känner till? Är det något som skulle vara intressant att jobba mot, att etablera?
Vi har ju en första svensk master på svensk sida, master i Dodji. Och det är ju Katarina Spikskog. Hon är baserad här i Uppsala. Hon har gått Sami skola. Men det är klart att det skulle vara jätteintressant med forskning. Självklart. Alltså det finns så många bitar i Dodji att forska på. Liksom allt från identitet till trådar och sömmar och så.
But not without microphone. No question without microphone.
Sorry. I think it's very interesting I'm just interested to know how do you, because how do you measure the authenticity, the genuineness of something? How is it genuine something? How is it authentic? As for something which is not.
It's a quite it's for a professor to future professor. I don't know, but I mean, there are some markers, and I think the thing I don't like the word traditional because traditions always change. But there is a quite specific. Sanna is the expert on this, but there is a quite specific way of, and it's also a sort of tradition which has not been broken. So. It's a living tradition, but some formspråk, färger delvis, hur man har handlat med tyg, men det ändrar ju sig också, tyger ändrar ju sig, men det finns ju just formspråket kanske och sättet att sätta mönster och så där. Så det finns ju något som på något sätt är, det krävs lite kompetens till det, de har inte jag riktigt med samma i den i alla fall. Så. Man kan säga vifta tillbaka frågan igen.
Thank you very much for all your questions. Please also hand to Liz-Marie Nielsen and Sanna Larsson and say your questions for the last round. We have now Mr. Andersson who will conclude the long row of lectures. He's from Faculty of Law in Tromsø University. So the floor is yours, Mr. Andersson.
Yo
Anders Zombie. Thank you very much, Anders Zombie. It's now time for questions. New round of questions. You, Pernilla Stolka.
Thank you, that was very pretty and proud.
More questions? Comments?
Or your comments?
I have a question. You were focusing quite much on human rights instrument. But how can you be an indigenous human if you are not entitled human rights instrument? Are you really an indigenous human? Or maybe you are just domesticated Swede since you have to obey the Swedish structure and the lack of human rights instrument. Could you please elaborate a little bit on this issue? Thank you.
Our relationship to the human rights instruments, what kind of role you should have towards the instruments that are. And there, the take for the oppressed is oftentimes that one has to have a very pragmatical approach to the different instruments. Because sometimes it can even be that if you go to the court system and you get the courts to support you, then you are viewed upon as a scumbag because you go to the court and whine and cry and ask them for support. So somehow then if we look at the human rights landscape, then we have the human rights norms that could be of some help, and I exposed some of them here in this presentation. But in addition, you have to have institutions that will execute those norms, and you also have to have procedures through which you have to get these norms executed so that they become a reality, that they are not just laws on paper. And that is a challenge that we face very much, this divide between law in the books and law in life. So therefore it is a part of the package to have been born as an indigenous person and to live your life as an indigenous person, that you have to have a kind of switching, very pragmatic approach where you both have to be literate on the principles, the content of the principles, how the structure of the institutions are built up, but and also be literate on the procedures that are in play. So you have to be much more literate than, for example, a Norwegian lawyer ever has to be. But in addition, then you have to have this pragmatical approach. When is it wise to use to come dragging with your legal protection, and when is it not wise to do that? So some would say that it's a very complicated life. I would say that it's a very interesting life.
I think it's good to have a lawyer present, and I'm just wondering, because in many fields, when we are talking about Sami issues, there is this issue of norms and values and a goal. You are going to reach something. And there is these two divides on international law. there is the natural law perspective, and then there is the positivist perspective. And as an indigenous person, what do you see as dangerous from each of these sides? Maybe you have to explain what those sides are.
The positive law first. You know, the origin of the word positive is that there is law that is positioned somewhere in a text matrix, so that this law has then an address in that text matrix. So you say that, for example, this and that is stated in the Norwegian Constitution, paragraph 108, or you say that it's positioned in this court decision. It is posited in some legal theory or wherever. So it and from the positive perspective, then you have the Hamletian question, that it is to be or not to be. So with a positive perspective, we say that if it's not in the text matrix and has an address, then it is not. So it is on the not being side. And it's quite obvious that for people of that hasn't had the same concept of texts as this linear matrix of texts is, then it's a very disadvantaged position to be in, that your legal protection is it's a matter of if it is in the text matrix and has an address there or not. So that invites to start to negotiate the rules of the game. That you can say that the positivist game is sort of rigged with the disadvantages to the indigenous peoples. And that leads to that you have to go to discourse theory, you have to go to maybe sociology, you have to go to semiotics and try to perhaps find some semi-texts. So for example, in archaeology, you have a semi-text that then give evidence for that. You have a present there, and this presence has to have a legal protection. So that is the big challenge of positivist protection. But on the other hand, if you happen to have this address in the text matrix, like Kaisa Korpiakko's research showed that the Ruonala Sámi village had textual communication, a lot of textual communication. Then it happened that this area had a lot of legal protection. So that is the positive side, or the positivistic approach. If we then look at natural law, the natural law side, and there you have the notion that law is a much bigger body than this text matrix. And the text matrix only partly mirrors the bigger body of law. But then you come to this, and that can be give a good space to argue for protection of indigenous rights. What is it like to be a good, to have a good human presence? If we compare with the Kantian rationality, and you look at that you have to follow what is reasonable and so on, then the subtext of that is that you have a kind of societal view, family view, that father is the wisest member of the family. So listen to father. Father knows what it is to be, and if you do not obey, then you have to be punished with maybe some prison things. So disciplining is to whip somebody with prison, for example. And then you have maybe the other ways, like the Sámi. One of the most dramatic documents that I have read is a letter written in 17th of July, 17th of July, 1762, I recall. Two missionaries get a letter from Thomas von Westen, who Christianized the Samis. And Thomas von Westen writes to these two missionaries that the Samis are pagans. It's a very dramatic thing to say, because it means when somebody is declared pagans, then you can go and rob them. You can take from them whatever you would like to take from them. So to be declared as a pagan is a very dangerous thing. 23 items on a list is in that letter. Most of these 23 items on that list refer to the ritual practices that they are using, that they are sacrificing blood to stones and different practical things. But there are then three lists, or three items. Then point 14 in that list says that these people do not punish their children. They let their children talk back to them, and they even become proud if the child is not obeying them. So therefore they are pagans. And then point 16, Astri, is that they let their women dominate and dictate them. So therefore they are pagans. And 23 is that they think that their ancestors are the wisest one, so they don't need any new gods. So summed up there, you get that these people, they had these ritual practices, they respected children, they respected their women, and they respected their ancestors. And therefore you could rob them, because that made them to be pagans. Sorry for having been a pagan here.
You're very much welcome. And now there is a discussion here, and the floor are open to discuss the three statements that were held during the after coffee session.
Any questions?
Yes?
Anything.
Anything, but it's even better if we have continuity to the lectures. But you are free to bring forward the questions that you like are suitable today. Anyone who wants to? I have a question to Gunilla. You have been doing quite a travel, discovering your heritage and also discovering the remaining of the forest Sami culture. It says in the book that he who increases his knowledge increases his burden. And has your burden been increased, or is it a joy to find the result that you have find in a mysterious way?
It's both, I think, because in the same way it's suffering to see how everything has been taken away once also, or how much we have lost, really. And I've also found my own history, and the last years I realized that my research areas are the areas where my ancestors have been living. For instance, at Gallo, that my ancestors were having this scatterland in the 18th century that is now threatened to be blown away completely with all the remains that are still there and the proof of our existence. So this book is I like to find my history, but sometimes it hurts in a way too.
I do agree with your conclusions here. Anyone who have a question? You have at some time now to produce a question.
Or reflections. Anything.
Do you have anything you want to say that should be brought forward to us? This is the moment we have been waiting for.
Sorry, maybe I shouldn't dwell on this, but I would have answered the question that I asked you like this. Positivism is defined that there is a difference between law and morality. They are two different things. So it means that you can have a law and it can be a horrible law, according to your own belief. Natural law says that there is a higher moral law that is above the legal law. And some would argue, not like Kant and John Rawls, they have these, many are arguing for that. And some also would argue that from that in many different disciplines, and also in Sami because we are concerned about what's right, what's not right, what is just, what is unjust. Are we treated, what is to be colonialized? Is that a bad thing? We would certainly think so. But I see there is also a danger in going for higher moral values that we believe in, because there is a certain advantage to having a rigidity of the law. Because, and especially if you are a minority, if you're a small group, because the rigidity of the system protects you from a majority. So if you have many people and the truth is based on subjective, beliefs, then you can be sure that the majority is always going to win, because what's right, what is true, what is just, is defined by the majority. But if you have some rigid system of how you define, how you argue, according to, and people have to accept that, well, what I think myself is the law, what is just, is not necessarily the same as what is in the law. I have to accept that the law is sometimes opposed to my own beliefs. And that's also a protection for indigenous peoples and minorities against the majority.
Yeah, I think also an important part of this discussion is to remember that, for example, from feminist technoscience, an important point there is to say that even what we think of as natural science, natural laws, physics, biology, are all shaped by our culture and our ways of understanding the world. That, of course, there is a world out there, but the way we describe it is always shaped by our worldview and our values. And for example, in medicine, for example, or in physics, or in astronomy, how we name planets, for example, are often named after important men, for example, or how we describe illnesses or immune system are often shaped by how we think of as a more Western-oriented, masculine way of looking upon the world, where the immune system is a kind of fight the bacteria and all this kinds of thing, that we don't describe the world objectively, even though if we are in natural science, we describe it through our senses and our way of understanding the world and our values and so on. So I think also from an indigenous point of view, it's important to criticize this way of understanding what we think about as natural laws, because they are always shaped by kind of a Western scientific way of understanding the world that is of course also shaped by colonization and masculine male dominance and so on. And yeah.
And please present yourselves.
No, that was Astri Dankertsen speaking, but I don't think people online could see you. And before that was Hadi Strømmen Lile, and I would say I'm May-Britt. And I would say, I think, as Astri said, the feminist technoscience, the feminist work is so useful for indigenous work. And we should really take in that, because it's the criticizing the way of producing knowledge. It's really strong in feminist perspectives, and in particular feminist technoscience. Jag ska säga på svenska också. Feministisk teknovetenskap, det är alltså en form, det är framförallt kvinnor som själva har disputerat i naturvetenskapliga och tekniska ämnen eller relaterade ämnen där de tittar just på naturvetenskap och teknik, som har skapat en del som man nu tagit tillflykten till genusvetenskap eller utbyte med genusvetenskap som en plattform för att ifrågasätta teknik och naturvetenskap och den så kallade objektiviteten som skapas där. Och den är väldigt användbar. Det är en liten marginaliserad grupp av forskare som gör det i Sverige. Jag är en. Det finns i USA och jag skulle verkligen vilja uppmana fler att titta på det, att hämta inspiration därifrån, för det är väldigt bra kritik mot de här objektivitetsprinciperna där vetenskap framstår som någonting, ett gudsöga. Att vetenskap blir utmålat som det är Gud som har sagt det här. Och så är det inte, aldrig någonsin, utan det är människor som skapar vetenskapen. Humans creating knowledge and producing knowledge. So that's my comment.
Yeah, I'm the zombie here. I have two points. First, to Hadi, that's so true that if you have the support of positive law, then it's not negotiable what the evidence for the legal norm is, because it's written there. We saw an example on the Norwegian Sami coastal rights issue, because when the powerful becomes postmodern, then you are sort of in trouble. Like the spokespersons from the Norwegian government, Deputy Minister Hans Christian Amundsen and later Helga Pedersen, then Minister of Fisheries. They both used the postmodern argument, saying that nobody can fish with a legal paragraph, and looked upon with a postmodern view. That's so true. But if that point is a general point, then nobody can drive with a legal paragraph. Nobody can do transactions with a legal paragraph. Nobody can do any activity whatsoever with a legal paragraph. And therefore you can just shut down all rule of law. So they didn't have, they didn't look into the implications of that statement. But the very usage of that statement is a good illustration that when very much is negotiable, then the powerful will win the game. And then Astri has a very important point here, and that is because belonging to the marginal groups like indigenous and also from the feminine perspective, then you also become a tourist traveling into how the premises are built up on different concepts. What was normal? What kind of masculine family values, war metaphors that have sunk into the obvious part of the theory. And that leads us to when we meet the marginal and the normal, because if you have the normal view, then you can just lean back and you can think to what the marginal ones are saying, that just speak. I know how this is going to be. I don't have to argue with you little piece of dirt. If you have the marginal position, then you have to do the rhetorical work. You have to invent all the arguments. You have to find out which arguments to use, economize between them. You have to make the dramaturgy, what shall I say first, and what's next, and how can I be elegant with that, and how can I come with my speech. So it is a hell of a work to belong to these marginal groups. But the good side is that you get this